If you've just got engaged and you're planning on having an Italian wedding, but you're not sure where to start, this is the episode for you. Ciao, I'm Lucy, I'm a wedding planner and I'm the founder of Lista, the platform that is built for you if you are planning an Italian wedding. So if you're just engaged, firstly, congratulations. This is such a nice time of life. I remember it so well, the feeling, the buzz of being engaged. You're on such a high. And before you start thinking about planning, it's really nice just to actually enjoy this moment. Take some time before people can start to ask you what your plans are. Just enjoy it, make the most of it. You might have been engaged for a while and you're just starting to think about planning. Here goes. These are the first things that you need to do to set you up for an amazing Italian wedding planning journey. I see a lot of people rush into this and get kind of information overload because there is so much information out there. Loads of it's really old, by the way. If you search on Google, you're going to find the things that come up top in search engines most commonly are things that are really old. So they're not even going to apply anymore. They are outdated. There are loads of directories full of suppliers, but they're not vetted, so you don't know how good those suppliers are going to be. Obviously, we've got Pinterest, Instagram, loads and loads and loads of information going on, and it's so easy to get overwhelmed. So before you start looking, just stop, just take a moment. If you start planning without a budget, if you choose the wrong planner, if you choose the wrong venue, these are all going to really mess up your wedding planning experience, probably make you overspend, and maybe you won't enjoy your wedding day as much. Like, I've seen it happen quite a lot. These mistakes up front can taint the whole wedding process. So really, truly, just take a moment before you get started and think about these foundational steps that I'm going to run through. So the first thing is to download our ultimate wedding tracker. It will be in the comments below. You can find it in the shop on lalista.com. Now, it is £44 and I never plug anything sales-wise on here, but it's because I know that this is just such a good document. And before you even get started with planning, you're going to have this document in place, which is going to save you not only so much time, it's literally going to give you every single step that you need to take when you're planning an Italian wedding. It's going to give you a budget template, which is going to give you every single thing you need to consider within your budget. It literally sets you up perfectly. So once you've got your tracker in place, you then need to start thinking about your guests, and handily, there's a tab for this. I would just list all of your guests that you think that you might invite to the wedding. Now, people have different rules for this. They have rules like, would I invite this person over for dinner? Would I pay for this person to have dinner? All of these different criteria you can put in place to work out who's going to make the cut for your wedding. But the first thing I do is just get everybody out and then go from there. Once you know how many guests you might have, it would be a good idea to then work out who the VIPs are, the people that you could not do your wedding without. And then you need to go to them and find out if they'd be up for traveling to Italy. Likelihood is everyone will. There may be some grandparents that maybe can't make it, or you're not sure about how they're going to be in the future. And a lot of couples navigate this by having a ceremony at home. So maybe they get legally married at home and then they have a symbolic ceremony in Italy. And there's more on that, but both weddings feel like weddings. Like, your Italian wedding will still feel like a wedding if you have a symbolic ceremony, and it just means you can incorporate everybody into your wedding celebrations. But the main point here is checking that your VIPs can come to your wedding. I remember having this conversation with my family back in the day. I got married almost 10 years ago in Italy, and the main thing for us was we really wanted this dream of an Italian wedding, but will everyone actually be able to make it? You know, it's a lot to ask people to take time off work, to spend the money, and overwhelmingly it was a yes. So that was probably the most important criteria for us going ahead with our wedding. So once you know you can have everyone that you need at your wedding, it's time to get a little bit creative. So I would literally approach this by having a brainstorm. Think about all the things that I'd want to have at my wedding. So maybe 3 days of events, the type of venue that I might have, whether everybody would sleep there or some people might sleep there, what it might look like, what it might feel like, anything that I definitely would want to have. So personally, I'd have a really good photographer. So just working out what your priorities might be. And this is intentionally meant to be before you know much about wedding planning and Italian weddings. So just go wild, get all your ideas out there, and we can scale them back later on if we need to. So then I'd work through these and I just work out what are your non-negotiables, what are the things that you're going to have at that wedding, what are the things that are kind of nice to have if you can fit them in your budget and your plans. So now it's time to learn, it's time to unleash the wedding knowledge. Now, obviously the first place I'd start is lalista.com. We've literally written hundreds of articles on there with the pure intention of letting you know what the real deal is when you're planning planning an Italian wedding. It can be quite overwhelming, as we said earlier, with all the different sources of information. So I just really think about like what information you're going to take on board here, and take everything with a pinch of salt, even what I say, because it's your wedding. No one's planned your wedding before. No one's had your wedding before. No one's in your mind. So no one is going to know exactly what you want and how you feel about things. Everyone's coming from their own perspective with things and the advice that they give you. When you listen to other couples, just remember, lots of them haven't got married yet, so they haven't actually experienced the wedding. They don't know that what they've booked and planned is actually going to work. And if they have got married, it's great advice. It's good to get supplier recommendations, but things expire very quickly. Things change, whether that's trends, prices, or supplier reputation. Information and knowledge does have an expiry date. So as I say, just take everything with a pinch of salt. And when you get on to booking your suppliers, your venue, etc., you'll do the very specific research on that at that point. Another little bit of advice here. So when you're binging all of this information, just be careful to kind of do this in order. So only take on board like what you need to know now. How do you do that? Well, back to the tracker with the steps that you've got to take in terms of planning. If you just look at the first section, which is like the just engaged section, you only need to know these first few chunks of information. You don't need to know all of the details of like how you're going to style your wedding, how you're going to pick your flowers. You just need to know how to get started and probably start to understand the cost of things and how you're going to pick your venue. Don't overwhelm yourself with going deeper into absolutely everything else. That will come. So you're going to use all of this information that you've sourced to build a budget. Now, I'm very passionate about having a budget in place, but it is so important for a number of reasons. Don't be lazy here. Planning your budget will make your decisions easier to make. It will stop you missing out on suppliers that you love. It will stop you overspending. It will stop you underspending. And that means you can have what you want rather than trying to scrimp and save. It means you'll navigate planning with like an ease and a calm because you know that you can do what you want. You've budgeted for everything. There is nothing worse than going through planning, randomly picking things, not really knowing whether it's going to come together, whether you're going to go over budget. You might decide not to have something because you think that you can't, when actually you could have if you just budgeted for it. Get your budget ready. So to build a budget, this is where you need my budget tutorial, and this is only available in our membership, the club. In this episode, I take you through absolutely every single item that you would put in a budget, the range of the cost of those items, and how you determine what you should budget. Honestly, I obviously believe it's absolutely incredible. It's only £22 a month in the club, and you could join and use that budget tutorial to get started. It is going to set you up on the absolute right foot. If that's not for you, you can watch all of our series on budgeting here on YouTube. They're all free, and there's a free budget tracker also available on our website. And finally, I know it's a lot, but getting started and sorted is key, as I say, to the foundations of planning. Now you're going to work out a bit of a timeline. So you need to establish like where you are in the planning world. Do you need to get cracking right away if you want a wedding next year, or have you got a bit of time to wait? So you do this by reaching out to a few suppliers, and I've obviously put these things in the order that I think you should do them, because if you've got a budget already in place and you're quite clear on your ideas, then it's much easier to speak to suppliers, venues at this point. So I'd keep it simple, reach out to just a few venues and find out what their availability is. You will soon learn if they're fully booked for the following year, you're going to have to move a lot quicker, and you're going to have to really look outside the box when it comes to venues, or you're going to have to think about maybe pushing it back a year. Only you'll know whether that's viable for you, but you need to work that out before you really get the ball rolling. And again, you might even need to go back to your VIPs and check that they'd be able to come to your wedding at these different dates that it might end up being. So at the end of all of this, you should have a clear idea of when you're going to get married, or when you're aiming to get married, and how busy things are looking, how quickly you need to get working on things. You'll have a clear budget, so you'll understand what you intend to spend on each area of the budget, and you have a total budget, and you'll feel slightly more in control of your planning from the start. You'll know that you can do what you want. You'll have a rough guest list. You might have refined this. You'll have a good idea of the number of guests that you're going to have at your wedding. And you'll have a kind of wish list. You'll have a really good idea and fundamental understanding of the wedding that you're going to try and create. And that's really important when you're communicating with suppliers. So you've got all these tools in your toolkit. You've got a really good base. You should have a really good spreadsheet going, and you'll feel really good and calm about going into planning. Honestly, doing it any other way and jumping in or getting overloaded with information, I've seen it so many times. It causes so much stress and overwhelm. And actually, a lot of it is wasted time. If you start this way, you're not going to waste any time, and you're going to have a really good kick-off to your planning. Thanks for watching this episode. I'd love to reach more couples with my advice. If you could just like, subscribe, or comment below, that would really help us in our ambition to help more couples planning their Italian weddings. Thank you. I'll see you next time.